Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Inside Harvard Football. Bernie Corbett pleased, as always, to be joined by Harvard head coach Tim Murphy as we take a look back to a very emotional day for the Crimson. The home opener, the Ivy League opener against Brown, a 45-28 victory. And I guess, Coach, I said the word once, I'll say it again. I guess emotional is probably the first word that comes to mind in terms of what your team went through, you, your coaching staff, etc., and how that translated on the field on Saturday.
Well, obviously, Bernie, as you've spoken of, very emotional week for all of us, and it translated into a very emotional game. And as I told our kids, during the practice week, you really have a finite number of ways we can respond. We can pack it in, we can go through the motions, or we can fight like hell. And our kids fought like hell. And right from the very first kickoff, with the big play by the kickoff team by Toby Ezekiel on the kickoff, knocking down the kickoff returner at the 4-yard line. We played with a lot of pride, a lot of emotion, and we weren't always as disciplined as we need to be, but really played hard, really played well, and obviously got off to a good win in our Ivy opener.
Now, indeed, a good win in the Ivy opener, and Coach, maybe a little bit of a surprise on the offensive side. I know from when we talked in the preseason, a number of freshmen you're very high on that can have an impact this year, and among them was the high praise you had for Jake Smith. He ended up getting the nod as the starting quarterback and engineered an early drive that featured a pretty big completion on 3rd and 8, a 31-yard hookup with Adam Scott.
Well, Jake's got an interesting skill set, and he's played remarkably well for a freshman. I think it's only the second freshman we've ever started, the last one being Ryan Fitzpatrick. And, we got a long way to go, but he definitely gave us a spark. He's not the least bit phased out there. And, certainly has to do some things better. But the kid can play. He's got a little bit, relative to FCS Division I football, he's got a little bit of Doug Flutie intangibles in him. He's got a little like Johnny Manziel in terms of his improvisational skills and an extraordinarily accurate passer, whether he breaks the pocket or in the pocket. And, those combination of the things are the reason that we recruited him. But I also thought that Joe did a great job with his leadership. Joe played well as well, and we'll certainly play better teams defensively than our opponent last week. But my goal is to have 3 quality quarterbacks by mid-year if you throw Tommy Stewart into the mix, and the competition is going to make us all better.
After the first drive, you had some struggles. Your next 6 offensive plays netted just 14 yards. You had the safety where Jake got trapped. And you had the golden touch, Coach. You went to the bullpen at the right time. Joe Viviano backed up to the goal line. He takes you 98 yards. He hits 5 for 5 for 76 yards on the drive. And he certainly was a guy that responded after having a seat there at the beginning of the game. He came in and really rose to the occasion.
No question about it. Probably the best game Joe's played in a while. Now, we'll play a lot better defenses than Browns, meaning no disrespect, but we thought whoever the quarterback was, we would definitely have a good opportunity to get some wide-open receivers. And that was the case because not only were they open, they were certainly wide open at times. And I think, we had one drop with Jack, and, between the two, they were 16 for 20 for 200-plus yards and a touchdown. So very happy with the quarterback situation relative to our opponent, but a lot of room for improvement with both guys and as an offense in general.
And Charlie Booker, again, proves that contact really doesn't matter to him. He can take initial contact and make yards. He was impressive with 77 yards and 2 touchdowns, particularly on his touchdown run. He looks like a keeper for you at the running back position, the next in a long line of guys that have been productive backs in the Harvard scheme.
No question. He's a better football player than he was a year ago. He's healthy, knock on wood, and he's more athletic. But the bottom line is a great after-contact guy, has the speed to finish plays, and he's a weapon. He reminds me a lot of Trevor Scales, and no question about it, he's going to be one of the top running backs in the Ivy League.
With getting back to a 45-point effort offensively, just comment on the offensive line. Coach, you knew coming into this season to be a bit of a work in progress. You had Ben Schultz, your anchor, who we're actually going to talk to on Inside Harvard Football this week, and there was certainly some new faces that we're going to be getting some much more intensive reps. And your assessment, your thoughts on that particular unit a couple of weeks into the campaign.
Well, they have a chance to be a really good unit. Timmy O'Brien, our left tackle, has a chance to be a special player, very athletic for a 6'7" kid. Ben's a fighter, a tough guy, a leader in the middle, and we've got a lot of guys working at guard and at both guard positions, and we're going to have a competition for the right tackle spot for the rest of the year between two seniors, Mark Goldman, who will have another year of eligibility, and Danny Layton, the young kid out of Massachusetts. He's doing an outstanding job at right guard, and the combination is we feel like we have 7 or 8 guys that is going to make this a very solid group, and hopefully by the end of the year better than that.
Now you look at how other targets have emerged in the passing game and developed. If you take a look at a stat sheet and see that Justice Shelton Mosley only had 1 reception, yet the offense scored 45 points, I guess that's kind of a good news, bad news. If he's being taken away a little bit more, that you've got other guys that seem to be gaining confidence and more impactful for you.
No question. I mean, we've certainly got to target Justice more than we have, and those opportunities will show themselves. I'm very confident of that. But with him, Adam, Ryan Antonellis, all of our tight ends, Jack Stansel, we've got a bunch of good guys, and then guys like certainly Jack Cook and a number of guys have shown that they'd be good players. By my count, we had 11 different receivers in the game, and that's always a good thing.
It spread the ball around nicely. On the defensive side, Coach, that's where the final score can certainly be deceiving in terms of the fact that you had it well in hand and dominated. Just the stat that really pops out through 3 quarters, Brown averaged just 2.4 yards a play. That's something you can certainly live with. They didn't get inside your 30-yard line until the fourth quarter when Linton came off the bench and had some success. But overall, I'm sure there's a lot of things for you to be pleased with as a head coach and as a staff with Scott Larkey on the defensive side.
Well, there's no question about it. It all starts with defense, and if you can shut down the run and make them play left-handed, that gives you an opportunity to get some picks, to create some opportunities in field position. But, yeah, it all starts with defense, Bernie, and really outstanding showing by our defense. I thought we played well in the Rhode Island game. We're going to, obviously going to have some areas where we don't have as much depth, where it may be challenging, but we're sort of where we expect to be as a Harvard defense. We play good defense. We give ourselves a chance to be successful week after week.
You got Luke Hutton, your captain, but Tanner Lee, I think of him, I think playmaker, and I'm thinking of it even more with the big pick six and how much of an influence he is on your success defensively week in and week out.
Well, if you look at production, if you look at emotion, to me he's one of the best defensive players in our division in the country. He's one of those kids that's never out of position. He's got a knack for the big play. He's sneaky athletic and very physical for his size. And in my humble opinion, he's one of the best safeties in the country.
And how about, I guess I'd be very much remiss if I didn't mention this guy. I had a friend of mine who was actually at the game, and he came away and saying, wow, number 41, Charlie Walker, a pick. But that doesn't really tell the story. You look at the number of tackles he was involved and the type of hits that he made during the course of the game. He was a huge factor for you on the defensive side, a real igniter, a real spark for you.
Well, we needed it, too, because, we've been dinged up a little bit at linebacker,
yeah.
And he's a kid that, coming out of high school out of Texas, was a highly recruited kid, a kid that we loved in terms of personality and just intangibles. And just to see him healthy and have an opportunity to run around with such joy on his face is really, really inspirational for all of us. Knock on wood, but if he can stay healthy, he can certainly help us at the second level. And
I know that the penalties, I'm sure you've addressed this week. You want to get those down again, Coach. You had 10 penalties in Game 2, and hopefully that's a number that is going to come down to one of more of your liking overall.
No question. We need to be more disciplined, especially in the offensive line. I thought a couple of calls could have gone either way, but at the end of the day, we definitely have to be more disciplined, especially in the offensive line.
Georgetown team 0-2 start, lost a very close one to Marist, and then last week they certainly had their struggles against Columbia, a team that seems to be much improved with Al Bagnoli now year 3 of his administration down there in New York. They lost their quarterback early. That seemed to be a big blow from them, as it can be to any team when you're going with a more inexperienced guy and trying to put up points.
Well, no question about it. the bottom line is that they're a good defensive team, in my opinion. They've played pretty well defensively. They've had their struggles on offense, and if you lose your quarterback, that's obviously going to exacerbate the situation. But, they always play us tough on the road. In RFK will be an interesting venue, and I think, we certainly are in no position to disrespect anybody, nor would we. But we're just going to have to concentrate on ourselves. We have a lot of things we need to improve on, which we've talked about. The thing I'm most pleased with is the leadership, the motivational emotion that we're playing with, and we're going to have to carry that into this game to keep our success going.
And a little bit of a wrinkle playing at RFK, a venerable football facility. The ghosts of guys like Joe Gibbs and Art Monk and Joe Jacoby and a few of those names from Darryl Green from Redskins past. When you think of RFK Stadium, that's pretty special.
It is. It's cool. It's special, and it's also cool to think that we're playing in a stadium named after a former Harvard football player, class of 1948, Bobby Kennedy.
Indeed the case, Coach. Coach, thanks very much for your time. We appreciate you joining us here this week and every week here on Inside Harvard Football. We embark on a new venture and keep all of the fans and everybody in Crimson Football Nation informed. And best of luck this week in D.C.
Bernie, thanks very much. Great talking to you.
Coach Tim Murphy, our guest here on Inside Harvard Football. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone, to Inside Harvard Football. Bernie Corbett pleased to be joined this week for our Crimson Profile by the anchor of the Harvard offensive line, the boys up front, Ben Schultz. He is a junior center from Maple Grove, Minnesota, right outside of the Twin Cities in the Gopher State, and we're very pleased to have him with us this week. Ben, I want to welcome you to the program, and congratulations on getting off in successful fashion in Ivy League play. The home opener and the Ivy opener turned out to be an auspicious one.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, and it definitely did. We hoped to get that first win against Brown, and I think we went out there and did a pretty good job, so thank you for that.
And indeed the case, and has been well documented with the Harvard program. I talked to Coach Murphy earlier, and I think the key word is really emotion. A very emotional week, and it seems like that the team was absolutely focused, targeted on the game, and delivered amidst some rather difficult circumstances surrounding the proceedings.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think it was definitely an emotional week for all of us, and when you go through situations like that, I think it's really important for a team to come together and really fight in a game like that for someone like Ben, who is going through such a difficult time, and prayers go to him and his family. So I think that when we were coming back in on Monday and Tuesday, Coach Murphy and Luke, our captain, actually really emphasized coming together as a team in a tough time like that. And I think having done that, we really had success in the game, and we were able to deliver that game ball to Ben, which is awesome.
Absolutely. As you know, you get in a situation like that and be able to deliver on the promise, if you will, and I'm sure a great boost to a young man like Ben, and thoughts and prayers are with him throughout the football community beyond Harvard, very close knit community, as you know, and success and really set the tone. I thought it was palpable from the beginning with the big hit on special teams that started it off, and the offense. You had a different, of course, for you personally, you had a different man under center with, as I said, not Jake from State Farm, but Jake from Michigan at quarterback with Jake Smith. And as Coach Murphy had talked about during the preseason when I had a chance to sit with him, a very precocious freshman, a guy that is a little bit wise beyond his years, and probably no surprise that he was able to see some action early in his career.
Yeah, Jake, as I'm sure Coach Murphy said, he's a really smart guy coming as a freshman. He knew more than most do coming in at their position, and I think it was really good for him to get into the game and kind of get the feel for it. And yeah, like you said, I thought he played pretty well. He's a great kid, got a great arm, and I think he has a bright future ahead of him for sure.
Indeed the case, and back to Joe Viviano and Coach Murphy, as I mentioned to him, it kind of had the golden touch. Went back to Joe, 98 yards of real estate in front of you, Ben, and Joe and the rest of the offense. And Joe put together really very, tremendous drive, precision-like, very efficient drive, was perfect on his passing, mixed in the run well. Anytime you can take it 98 yards all the way and bring it in on the other end of the stadium, that was very impressive. Really set the tone for what was to come.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Joe definitely took over the game with that drive, and I think that was kind of the dagger in the Brown defense. After that, doing a 98-yard drive, I think completing almost every one of his passes on that drive, running the ball efficiently, and just really Joe leading the offense down the field. I think that was the turning point to where they knew that they couldn't compete with us. A great Brown team, but I think that was the turning point in the game.
And much more accustomed, particularly for me in my position, calling the games, to look up at the scoreboard at the end and say, well, yeah, there's 45 up there and not 10. I mean, the bar is set so high, Ben, year in and year out with the Harvard team overall, but particularly with the offense. I mean, the numbers are staggering in terms of being able to get the double figures, get the 30, get the 40. It's almost routinely in terms of the way that the offense is able to light up that scoreboard week in and week out, and that was more what we're accustomed to last week.
Yeah, definitely. I think Harvard teams of the past and the Harvard team this year, we've always had a strong offensive game, but defense too is really where it starts, and defense helped us with Tanner Lee's pick six, which was awesome to see. So they also contributed, and yeah, I think the offense really got it going this week, and hopefully we can carry that into the Georgetown game and put up more 40-point games.
Indeed. Looking at your position, returning at the center position, you had Kyle Adams there a year ago as a senior. You were able to see some significant action at the position, and really, as I mentioned in the beginning, to anchor this unit. And it is overall there's been some changes there. Just to give us a little bit of a perspective as you, as the man in the middle there and making the calls at the center position, and to give us a little bit of insight and perspective on some of the folks that are joining you this year and how that transition is taking place.
Well, starting with the right tackle, Dan Layden, the senior of the group, I think he's done a really great job of being a leader, not only in practice and in games, but off the field, and really helping us by elevating his play, elevate all of our play as well. And we also got Tim O'Brien at left tackle and Matt Jones at left guard, who are juniors as well, and I've been playing next to for going on 2 years now. And again, really solid players, and they've elevated their game from last year. And so it's just really great to see those guys all coming together. And then at right guard, we got Liam Shanahan, who, to be honest, has been a bit of a surprise in how great and how physical he's playing. I don't think you could find another guy who is willing to get his nose dirty every play.
Yep.
And will just fight for his brothers every time he's on the field. So really happy to see this group coming together, and we got some guys who are coming back from injury, like DJ Mott and
Goldman.
Mark Goldman, who will also be able to contribute on the field. So I think as an offensive line, we were really coming together, and we could really do great things this year.
Absolutely. You mentioned a couple of the guys that are coming back and have been on the mend and recovery from back to last season. You mentioned with Mott and Goldman, but bodes well overall, Ben. Quantity and quality in terms of the offensive line, in terms of your unit, that bodes well for a long season.
Yes, very true. I think it's hopefully not, but it's always inevitable that one guy's going to get banged up, and like Coach Murphy always says, next man up. And I think that couldn't be more true with this year's offensive line. If one of us goes down, it would be obviously very unfortunate, but the next guy up will be a fighter, and we'll be able to step in and not lose stride with the game.
Well, we talked about Joe Viviano, obviously the veteran, the fifth-year senior, and Jake Smith seeing action last week in the victory. Running back position, Charlie Booker has impressed the first 2 weeks, and also a guy that I knew to look out for after talking to Coach Murphy. Another impact freshman was going to be Aaron Shamplin. What about the running game and how that appears to be coming together for you here in the early going?
I think just to touch on the running backs, I don't think we could have more depth at running backs. It seems like every time you look at that position, there's not a guy back there who couldn't take the ball and run it for a touchdown every time. Obviously, Charlie has been playing out of his mind. Even when we don't block the guys, he's making them miss and breaking 4 tackles, and he's going towards the end zone, which is really good. And I think the running game really took a step forward in the Brown game, and we were able to open up some holes for our running backs. And when we do that, I don't think there's anybody in the league who can stop them with just their strength and their speed. So, yeah, I think the running game is coming together nice. We're getting a good balance of outside, inside, power, gap schemes, zone blocking. So I think the running game is greased and will be getting even better as we head into Georgetown.
You got a nice third down, all-purpose weapon with Northington too. He adds a little bit extra there.
Yeah, it's funny because he played quarterback in high school. So when we put him back there as that wildcat, I think teams are a little afraid to stack the box because they know he's got an arm.
He could throw. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a dual threat back there, and it was nice to get him in the end zone against Browns. So, our running backs and everybody back there in the backfield is really impressive, and I can't say enough good things about him.
Absolutely the case here, and once again, impressive coming off an impressive victory against Brown, and we'll look ahead to Georgetown in a moment. Ben, I'm sure people that follow Harvard football, we want to take them a little bit inside Harvard football. Your background, once again, Minnesotan, native of the Gopher State out in Maple Grove, Minnesota, much decorated on the gridiron, conference lineman of the year among your honors with All-State, All-Metro recognition, academic All-State recognition, and so forth, but also played the sport that we most closely associate with the Gopher State. You confessed to me a few minutes ago you played a little hockey also as an alternative, mixing football and hockey both during your high school years.
Yeah, I think everybody in Minnesota sets the skates up once or twice at least, and I love that game in high school just as much as I love football, and it was always fun to get on the ice and play. And I think a lot of people, when I tell them I played hockey, are surprised because of just my size, but I glided around there pretty well. I got after it.
I'm sure you did, and I'm sure you were pretty foreboding and imposing figure to the opposition, seeing you coming down the wing or going into the corners.
Let's hope so.
That was the desired effect. And, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't think back about 20 years and the center position at Harvard, Gopher State, a guy by the name of Matt Burke, who went on to stardom with the Minnesota Vikings and I believe just got nominated for the Hall of Fame. A name that you kind of remember, be a little bit back in the football annals for a young man, but I'm sure the legacy of Matt Burke is one that resonates with you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's funny you mention that because I actually, when I was committed to Harvard and I was a senior in high school, I was thinking about people who I could reach out to for advice, and I actually reached out to Matt Burke, and he got back to me and gave me some great advice and just said, there's going to be some tough times, but just work hard and be yourself and you'll succeed. And Coach Murphy knows he recruits good players, so it was really good to hear that from him, a guy who obviously was one of the most, if not the most, if not the best offensive lineman in Harvard history. So really great to get advice from a guy like that.
And a guy that now has been nominated, and I would say likely to, maybe not right away, maybe not this year, first nomination, but I would say likely to go to Canton and as a Hall of Famer. Yeah,
definitely. I think he deserves that. He played for the hometown Vikings, go Vikes, for a long time, and he did nothing but great things there. So
absolutely. Well, this week's challenge, you mentioned Georgetown, and you're just educating yourself now and getting the plan ready, getting the scheme ready. Team that the Crimson have faced over the last couple of years. What about the challenge of the Hoyas? You'll get to play at a former NFL venue at RFK Stadium, the former home of the Washington Redskins way back once upon a time.
Yeah, I think I think we're all pretty stoked to be playing there. That's going to be a really cool experience, and we're getting prepared by practicing on the grass and whatnot. And I was actually pretty surprised to learn that it was grass. But yeah,
Yep.
we're getting ready for Georgetown, and they got a great defense, and we've been studying them and hopefully getting to know all their tendencies and stuff. But we're looking up to the challenge, and they got some great guys over there that I think it's going to be a battle. But hopefully we'll get the win.
Look forward to that. Crimson will be their third game of the 2017 campaign, the second of their 3 non-conference games, and they're looking to stay on the winning track down in D.C. Ben, want to thank you very much. A pleasure to have you join us this week here on Inside Harvard Football. Best of luck this week and in the weeks to come during the 2017 season.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on.
Ben Schultz, he is the center, the anchor of the Harvard offensive line, the junior out of Maple Grove, Minnesota. Our Crimson profile this week on Inside Harvard Football.